The water of the blue hole was a sapphire eye in the vast, bleached canvas of the Bahamian sand, an abyss that seemed to swallow the light, and for Elias Thorne, standing on the edge of the research vessel Triton, it was the gateway to the only true silence he had ever known. Elias, a marine geologist and deep-sea exploration specialist, wasn't seeking ancient minerals or geothermal vents today. He was here to test a new submersible prototype, the Ether, designed for solo deep-water deployment and controlled entirely by thought interface technology, a marvel of bioengineering. But his scientific mission was always shadowed by a deeper, personal quest. He was perpetually diving away from the deafening echo of a failed rescue mission 5 years ago, an event that had cost him his diving partner and his peace. He still heard the static crackle of the comms, the frantic last words, the noise that only the crushing pressure of the deep could ever truly silence. Today, however, the mission felt different. The air was unnaturally still, the surface glassy, and as he ran the pre-dive diagnostics, he felt a strange sense of anticipation, not dread. His lead technician, Dr. Lena Hansen, a brilliant but stubbornly pragmatic physicist, checked his seals for the third time, her brow furrowed with professional anxiety. Elias, Ether's Neuralink is stable, but remember the parameters. 1 hour, maximum depth 2,000 meters. No deviations. We still don't trust the hull integrity at peak pressure. Elias simply nodded, his focus already inward, connecting to the Ether's nervous system. The submersible wasn't a machine, it was an extension of his will, a metallic shell housing his quiet mind. He sealed the hatch, the world shrinking down to the confined space, the hum of the life support, and the green glow of the interface. With a gentle lurch, the Ether detached and began its descent. The first few hundred meters were a vibrant, prismatic world of turquoise and shifting sunbeams, the corals and fish a kaleidoscope of distraction. This was the world of the living, the noisy, crowded surface world. Elias closed his eyes and pushed his consciousness deeper, urging the Ether downward, faster. As they crossed the 500-meter mark, the true ocean began. The light faded from blue to indigo, then to a perpetual, starless midnight. The pressure outside mounted with unimaginable force, yet inside the Ether, Elias felt only serenity. He could feel the pressure in the metallic groan of the hull, but the silence inside was absolute. This was the diving with angels part of the journey, the descent into the metaphysical. The familiar sense of isolation was comforting. Here, there were no comms, no frantic voices, no ghosts. He reached 1,500 meters, the realm of perpetual darkness, where life was monstrously adapted to the void. His mission was to test the bioluminescent mapping array, observing how the Ether's unique, low-frequency electromagnetic field interacted with the deep-sea fauna. He activated the external sensors, and the environment he looked out the reinforced viewport. The darkness was absolute, but slowly, a structure began to emerge, vast and delicate, radiating a soft, gentle, golden light. It was an oceanic cathedral, a scaffolding of light built entirely of bioluminescent strands and pulsating, geometric energy fields. It covered the entire rock face of the deep-sea trench, stretching far above and below his current location. He wasn't looking at a natural formation, he was looking at an architectural wonder constructed by an intelligence he couldn't comprehend. And then he saw them. They were not fish, nor squid, nor any known life form. They were entities of pure light, tall and slender, moving through the water with effortless grace. They didn't swim, they flowed. Their bodies seemed composed of intertwined silver and gold energy, pulsing in time with the rhythmic vibration. They moved in perfect synchronization, creating shimmering spirals and complex, living mandalas of light around the Ether. They were breathtakingly beautiful, an image torn straight from the ancient myths of benevolent sea deities, and Elias, the hardened skeptic, could only name them in his mind as angels. The noise, the unbearable static of his memory, suddenly dissolved. It wasn't the pressure that silenced it, it was the presence of this silent, radiant choir. He felt a profound sense of recognition, as if he had finally returned to a place he had forgotten he belonged. The creatures weren't communicating with sound or touch, but directly with the ether's neural link. Elias felt a sudden, overwhelming influx of information, not language, but pure emotion, pure knowledge. He sensed the deep-sea entities were ancient. One of the light entities approached the viewport, its golden form stopping mere centimeters away. Elias stared, mesmerized by the intricate patterns of energy that defined its face. He didn't see eyes, but he felt an ancient, gentle curiosity directed towards him. It seemed to perceive the ether not as a machine, but as a terrified, metallic cage containing a fractured soul. The entity sent a thought, not a command, but an invitation. It was a projection of the failed rescue, but seen through a different lens. Elias saw his partner, not sinking in the dark, but embraced by the light, gently received by the ocean, her passing transformed from a tragic, noisy failure into a calm, necessary transition. He saw that his guilt had been a chain, locking him to the noise of his fear. The light entity showed him that the ocean, the very place he feared, had been the true savior, offering final, absolute peace. The revelation was a hammer blow of truth, followed by a wave of cleansing acceptance. The unbearable noise of 5 years vanished, replaced by the resonant, silent rhythm of the deep. Elias wept inside the ether, tears of grief and release simultaneously. The dive wasn't just an adventure, it was the most beautiful adventure ever, the one that had cured his soul. Suddenly, the ether's alarm panel flashed red. He had crossed the 2,000-meter limit. The hull groaned ominously, protesting the extreme pressure. The Neuralink, overwhelmed by the energy transfer, flickered. Lena's voice, a faint, tinny sound, crackled over the emergency comms, "Elias. Abort. You are past maximum depth. Elias, respond." The light entity seemed to understand the danger. It pulsed brightly, and with its movement, the entire cathedral of light began to recede, fading back into the absolute darkness, dissolving its beauty to protect its secret. It left Elias with one final. Elias, galvanized by his newfound peace and Lena's frantic voice, wrenched his consciousness away from the profound beauty and focused on the emergency ascent protocols. He pushed the ether upward, fighting the crushing weight, the memory of the light creatures a perfect, silent blueprint in his mind. The ascent was brutal, a scramble from the grave of his guilt back to the noisy surface world. When he breached the surface hours later, pulled onto the deck of the Triton, he was physically exhausted but spiritually reborn. Lena was hysterical, screaming relief and terror simultaneously. "Elias, you went to 2,200 meters. The stress fractures are critical. What happened? What did you see? Your telemetry was completely corrupted." Elias sat, drenched and shivering in the harsh light of the deck lamps. He saw the anxious faces of the crew, the chaotic noise of the machinery, the fear in Lena's eyes. He knew he could never truly explain what he had seen. The scientific community would demand data, photos, samples. But he had none, only a healed soul and a profound, unprovable truth. He looked at Lena, his gaze steady and clear for the first time in years. "I saw pure order, Lena," he said, his voice husky. "And I understood that." He never told anyone about the light entities, the angels of the deep. He returned to the surface world carrying the silence of 2,000 meters within him. His mission changed immediately. He stopped trying to outrun the memory and started trying to understand the order he had glimpsed. He dedicated his life to conservation, to protecting the silent, profound mysteries of the abyss. Elias Thorne, the man who had sought silence to escape his guilt, had found it instead in the overwhelming, ancient presence of light, realizing that the greatest adventures are not those you document, but those that fundamentally change the story of your own life. He had dived into